The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Brian and Miss Berlin this week for Breaking Down Security.
Yay.
So we're here with, just as a full disclosure, as I've said with our other sponsor shows, this is a fully sponsored episode of this BreakSec podcast. We are going to be interviewing somebody from BLUMIRA, as well as, full disclosure, Miss Berlin works for BLUMIRA. So we're going to be talking with BLUMIRA about some trends in the industry. And, they paid the time to be here, and we are very appreciative of their time and more importantly, their money.
Right. Which I'm always appreciative of their money.
Yeah. That is a fair point. They sign the checks, don't they?
So what hat am I wearing? Am I wearing the BreakSec hat or am I wearing the BLUMIRA hat?
You know, you're straddling both trenches here in this case. Yeah. Oh, yes. Excellent.
I could just use different voices. I'm not great at voice acting though. So.
Oh, well, that's okay. Maybe you could be the BLUMIRA voice, and there's be the BreakSec voice.
I'm from BLUMIRA.
Hi ho.
Pretend to be Mira.
There you go.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. The sound. What's the blue hedgehog sound like? You know, that's the voice.
Right.
You need to
That's
use.
the
mascot.
The
right.
great question.
There you go.
Gosh,
yeah.
Those hedgehog videos are usually pretty quiet.
Yep, that's true. So the voice you're hearing is Emily Eubanks. She is one of the. I'll let you tell her. I'll let her tell you what her position is at BLUMIRA, and then we'll go ahead and get started with what we're talking about. So, Emily, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the InfoSec and detection spaces.
Hi, yeah, absolutely. So, first, hello. My name's Emily. I work for BLUMIRA as a security operations analyst. So you might find yourself talking to me if you ever need any help from BLUMIRA and you reach out. I found myself in this space after first when I was going to school, I was studying computer programming. And after exploring secondary English education and just finding out it was just not a good fit for me, moving into that space really clicked right away. And I had my first Linux administration course over at the community college over in Jackson, and had a really big impact on me. And I found that I was really drawn to the challenge of security. I love the changing landscape. And I just liked, it's almost like a marriage of computer science and kind of like being like a detective in a way. And so long short, I found myself at BLUMIRA, having worked with other SIMs in the SIM space and just like really struggling to find a SIM like that in-between SIM that wasn't too expensive and that also might offer just a little bit of support, especially coming from a smaller IT team. And initially I was looking for a place to invest in, but when I saw that BLUMIRA had, not only did they have a job opening, but they had the wonderful Amanda Berlin working there, whose book also helped me quite a bit early on in my career. It was just the perfect spot for me. And so here I am talking about BLUMIRA and why I love it so much. Yeah.
So you're going to be working with Amanda very soon over on her side of the street, so to speak, at BLUMIRA. Is she going to be your supervisor or management type person, or are you just colleagues?
It's very unofficial, but
yeah, I'm a very unofficial. I'm a lead incident detection engineer, so I do get to do now when I'm allowed to manage until I tell them that I need someone to do it instead.
Right on. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm transitioning over there now, so I'm on two teams almost. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
But
well, it's good that you're.
Yeah, we're like one big team over there. It's hard to tell where you're at. Yeah.
Right on. Well, it's good you're buttering that bread right now, and making her feel good, and while you get over there, make that relationship all the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on the show to talk about some of the BLUMIRA offerings, and how BLUMIRA helps. So we have 4 things, and just for full disclosure, I was amazed at the outline that she put on up here. She even put citations, which we will have in the show notes for this episode. She did not use a single Wikipedia reference, so you know that she's not a doctoral student.
There were Reddit links, though.
Yeah, there are a couple Reddit links, but that's cool. Yeah. So I do want to skip around a little bit. I know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, but the one that I found interesting here was, and then it's something that we constantly see in either on Twitter or in the media, is talking about recent or frequent IT staff turnover. So we've talked with NATO, and we've talked with the other gentleman, Patrick, yes, about what BLUMIRA does for your environment to help protect against hackers. But this one is interesting. You said recent or frequent IT staff turnover, and that kind of is interesting to me. So BLUMIRA can be almost treated like a staff augmentation model, it sounds like, where you're how does BLUMIRA help in terms of staff and IT turnover? You're not doing staff augmentation, obviously. You're not getting in dropping people inside of organizations, right? You're how does BLUMIRA help with that kind of issue?
Yeah, and so just kind of frame perspective here. Recent or frequent IT staff turnover, especially right now, it's almost like a fact of IT. I've heard a lot, and especially in the recent months, about how challenging it is right now to hire security professionals, and that there's a huge gap. And for years, there's been this huge gap. And with that, especially in at least my experience in information security, some professionals are really expected to hang around like 12 to 24 months, which might sound short to some people, but for some people, information security, the best way to get a huge pay bump in your career is unfortunately to leave. And it's just the name of the game right now. And what I've seen, not only, in my current role, but also in previous roles, I've seen that fact dramatically impacts the IT staff and the impact that IT staff processes has on the organization itself. And so when something does go wrong, and you got your new guy on there, your new girl, your new person, excuse me, on the job, I don't know if it would be reasonable to expect somebody to know the intricacies of a large network in their first, second, or third week. It's just hard. Even in your first or second month, it's a lot to take in, especially if you're not walking into a well-documented and diagrammed network. And I don't know how many, there are out there, but I think that if you have a network right now, I would ask yourself if that describes your network, and what would the impact be if, your keystone person on your IT team had to leave for whatever reason. So BLUMIRA doesn't claim to be an extra IT person. It's still software. It's an application. But in my opinion, what BLUMIRA can do to help is we try to create fewer, more actionable findings. And that's a really simple statement that we frequently repeat on the team and try to remind ourselves of is what findings are we producing? And what do we really expect people who are seeing those findings to do in response? We try to make that actionable, not just in the finding itself, but also in the workflow that we provide as guidance to respond to the finding. Amanda, would you have anything to add to that? Or how do you feel about how recent or frequent IT staff turnover affects organizations?
Yeah, and I think we've seen it during a couple of implementations, right? Somebody, they had turnover, or someone implemented this really large and complex sim and maybe wrote some amazing stuff for it, and they knew it really well. Maybe they were just super well versed in elk, or they have been doing Splunk for forever, and that was their jam. And then if they leave, like it'll stay running, right? And until it breaks, but it'll stay running, and like the current detections may work. But as far as like maintaining and modifying and all of the stuff that comes along with that, like that's very, very difficult. Like you can't really just expect somebody to come in and be like, oh, I know this. Like I can also do this and my job and all of this other stuff. So I think we just kind of take that out of the equation, because we're the ones doing the content creation and the playbooks and the detections and the refine, like we're the ones handling it. So while like we're not really an MSSP, right? Because it's software as a service. But you're kind of just taking that worry away, because like Emily said, like one of our main goals is not like no like crazy amount of alerts.
Right. Well,
right?
you're a bit of a stability area. If you've got turnover from IT staff, not only are you going to have if your company is dealing with a lot of people leaving and coming in and going out, your documentation may not get updated as often as it should. People may only have knowledge of certain things. They may not understand how everything works in their environment immediately. So using BLUMIRA in this case would be like an island of stability, if you will, where, the company can have confidence in knowing that, at least BLUMIRA is going to, be able to handle the actionable items and help with the security of that while they're getting their people trained up or updating their documentation or what have you. And you already have processes in place with those companies to, respond to those things, notify companies of potential issues.
There's new stuff coming out all the time.
Right.
That like, we're in charge of keeping track of it and adding new detections and reports and stuff like that. Like,
yep. That's what we're passionate about. We have, I know one member of our team, Brian Laskowski, you can't stop him from recreating attack scene in the wild. So it helps. So it helps to have the right set of people working to build out detections for, hundreds of organizations.
Cool. Yeah. So BLUMIRA is like that first line of defense, which makes sense. I work at a company, and it's hard to stay up to date on things in the industry because you can only watch Twitter so much, and things you'll miss things, or you can't get to conferences, or you can't watch the videos or what have you. So having folks that are that's their jam, makes a lot of sense. So one last question before we move on to the other bullets, because I want to make sure we get those bullets too. You say more actionable findings. Does that just mean, you're going to tell companies what to do, or, you're only going to tell them what is the positive findings versus, hey, we've noticed one of your load balancers is using TLS 1.0. You should probably go look at that and fix it. Or, what is an example of an actionable finding or bulletin? What do they look like?
So we might wade into like opinion territory, but to me, an actionable finding is something that I need to take action against, period. End of story. I need to do something. I need to make a decision, essentially. Is this something I need to fix? There's different schools of thought on this. I've also worked with not even just like specifically SIMs, but like endpoint detection response software, that will create many findings just to anything that matches, with their detection sets for suspicious or malicious, and then you evaluate, you're like, oh, that's, you kind of, when you're getting hundreds of alerts like that, and I've dealt with EDR programs like that in the past, your brain goes into like a different mode where you start to there's a word for it, but like you tune out the alert fatigue. You tune out the
Right.
alerts that are coming in. That's super bad. And it's such a boring, I think, thing to say. You know, I don't think people are very interested in hearing about alert fatigue, but I think you should be interested in it, because like similar to like drowsy driving, you're not paying attention to what's on the road.
Right.
And that's a danger, because that's what that tool is there for, is for you to listen to it when it pokes you and says like, hey, I was looking at these boring logs that you're never going to comb through. I did that for you. This is stuff that you're going to want to notice.
Yeah, I mean, we had somebody the other day ask us, they're like, hey, this one appliance alerted us like 10,000 times when we had this thing happen in our environment. I'm like, all right. And they want to know why we didn't. Like, well, we gave you, I think it was like 3 or 4 like specific things. Because did you actually look through all 10,000 of those and actually do something? No, of course you didn't. Like, that's just, sure, it may alert you to like, oh crap, something's going on, but that's what you get.
Very, like, I don't need, I understand that like many log events are going to be produced in response to a malicious event. I don't need a finding for each of those log events. I need to know what happened and what I need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So not only do you give them the actionable event, but you potentially give them mitigations or ways to remediate those. So almost like a pen test, where you have a finding, or you have an event, or have something that is discovered, and then you issue a mitigation or a way to patch or fix that item. So it's almost like a vulnerability management system, or a pen test in that, or an assessment, security assessment in that respect. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Okay. I think we'll go to number 4. So you have here PowerShell scripting best practices. Is this something that you're seeing at companies where they're just, not doing what is necessary to either secure PowerShell, or they're, is PowerShell noisy? Is this kind of what we're going with, where, 10,000 alerts is PowerShell one of those things that give you 10,000 alerts, and, that
everything.
Doesn't really tell you anything?
Yes to everything you just said. So yeah, PowerShell, first of all, PowerShell is awesome. Thank you, PowerShell, for being PowerShell and helping people manage Windows systems. However, because it's so useful, it's useful for everybody. And not only is it used in a lot of organizations, but it's used by a lot of threat actors. And I think also, I don't have like the stats on it, because I haven't like done like a poll, with all the organizations I've come in contact with. However, it's been my experience that people don't really talk about secure use of PowerShell. People don't really talk about signing your scripts beyond just like saying sign your scripts. I did know, like, when I did research on this, because I was like, oosh darn, I really better know my PowerShell is secure, my best practices, if I'm gonna, preach about it. And even the Microsoft documentation, like the only bolded words on the page was sign your scripts under recommendations. So not only sign your scripts, but vet the scripts that you're signing. So, not only, basically, like, if you're going to choose to use the tool in your business, I would highly recommend that you do so in a way that is going to help you and not hurt you. And so, like, if you're going to use PowerShell, you're going to want to turn on logging for it. You're going to want to use like the most recent version of PowerShell that the system can support. You're going to want to take some steps to make sure that you're using the tool in a safe manner that's not going to hurt the business. And some of those things include, secrets management, and that's not specific to PowerShell. That's just a whole separate topic in and of itself. But if you know that you're using PowerShell right now, and that you're not signing your scripts, or that the way that your PowerShell is running across your organization is that it's passing the username and password in plain text, or that's getting logged anywhere, I'd highly recommend Googling secrets management specifically. And those search results should show you some more information about how to securely store those secrets and access them across an enterprise environment. But yeah, anyway, so those two big separate items that I personally have with PowerShell, I guess three. Right. Recent version, please sign your scripts and vet those scripts that you're signing, and then practice secure secrets handling.
Right. So when you say sign your scripts, I'm assuming you're wanting to use regular DevOps methods where you have a CA root cert or something like that where you're signing it. I mean, I wouldn't say it's just doing that, because every time somebody uses just, it's hardly ever just doing so. There's a bit of work to make sure you're signing your scripts, but
yeah, very true.
And there's such a big difference though. Like if you can only alert on unsigned scripts or somebody trying to bypass that stuff, when all of your stuff isn't in there also, trying to find something malicious when it's acting exactly the same as how you're using PowerShell is incredibly difficult.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I think we have a blog post too, a BLUMIRA blog post about signing not signing scripts, but unsigned PowerShell.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Wow.
Anyway,
I don't see that as a citation here. Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to.
I'm
going to have to completely discount everything you're just saying right now. So no, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to race Miss Perlin to finding this article.
I'm just kidding. So when you say malicious PowerShell usage, would that also just mean that not everybody in your environment should be using PowerShell? So if you start, potentially seeing just regular users using it, or maybe could an organization have a specific group where they could use PowerShell, or is that door kind of gone because anybody can use PowerShell? It doesn't matter.
That's kind of a decision that you need to make in terms of what kind of privileges that your users have on their local systems or any systems, really, in terms of access management. I would recommend that it depends. I mean, it really depends on are we talking about a small to medium sized business? We may have fewer than 500 employees, or are we talking about something maybe a little more complicated, maybe some kind of open source product that may not know where their stuff will be ending up or what kinds of systems.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking because signing a script there. I mean, somebody could just open a PowerShell terminal and run some PowerShell commands. It seems like there might be a huge difference between somebody who's just I'm going to use winget or something to pull that down, which would potentially use PowerShell. But I would assume that those are going to be, winget is going to be signed because it's a potentially. Oh, Ms. Berlin did the thing there.
There's some things that aren't.
Yeah, now we're wading into how do we detect on PowerShell, and that depends on what we're looking for too.
Right.
Because one of the things I do really like about our detection set is that we do specifically look for signatures that are specific to some PowerShell frameworks that are used for command and control and other exploits. So so that's a little bit of a different answer there. But just generally to speak to that, I would recommend only allowing minimum access where possible, or not having PowerShell available if it's not needed. Right. There's a lot to read up about that, about access and then availability of tooling and how that could help an IT team, and also how that could hurt. Because if we're talking about a update script of some kind, or it depends on what the function of the script is, but depending on what the team is using it for, if it's used for any kind of maintenance to endpoints, then that's a different discussion. You're going to have PowerShell on the endpoint so that the PowerShell script can run.
Right. That makes sense.
But if you decide, I don't know, that your threat model is such that there's no reason that this user or this specific, I don't know, printer needs PowerShell, or something. I don't know if you can PowerShell on a printer. I've never done that. But you know, like it's like some like weird IoT device that is like has this like very unique function, and you have a baseline of like everything that device needs to run and do what you want it to. Then like lock it down. Don't give it PowerShell if it doesn't need it.
Right. Cool. And yeah, I mean, that would definitely be something that BLUMIRA would suggest. Hey, you know, if you don't need PowerShell, get rid of it, or, you know, lock it down. Or,
it's so hard too. So hard to get, I mean, yeah.
Right.
It's not as simple as like, hey, just after this meeting, I'm going to take 15 minutes and lock it down. You know, that's not,
it's almost as hard as removing Windows Defender.
Right. Oh, wow.
Which last time I tried, I blue screened a server. So
yeah, I've seen whole talks about that, where it was like, you know, trying to remove, you know, PowerShell. There's you can remove everything, including the executable, and there's still DLLs or something that will automatically start PowerShell for you or something. So it's
honestly, that might be a bad move then. With that knowledge in mind, then might be better to bulk up your logging.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Make sure
Look
you're just
for specific
watching
switches or something like that. There might be some malicious switches like bypass, UAC, or, you know, restrict, or there's a ton of those different switches. So yeah.
Yes.
So let's say somebody does run malicious PowerShell. One of the things that's going to come up is your incident response procedure. So not having those I know, right? Yeah. Segging it
Very
up.
Good segue.
Love segues.
Yeah. So, you know, let's say, brand new customer to BLUMIRA, and the first thing you notice within a couple of days is, hey, there's a ton of PowerShell running maliciously or not maliciously on your network, but, you know, how can you tell? So, you know, maybe you need to run an incident response plan, but we don't have one. So, you know, what you say a lack of IR procedures to postpone incident response because they would result in disruption of service, results in unfavorable outcomes. Yes, that is very much the choice. So how does BLUMIRA help with incident response, other than, you know, we've talked about, you know, kind of being that island of stability, or being, you know, actionable responses. So that would help, you know, guide the IR process. But how does BLUMIRA help with that in that respect?
I can take the first answer here. So for me, I know, especially when I first started doing any kind of IT security related work, the worst thing that could happen, and unfortunately it kind of happens semi-frequently, was you get an alert and you don't know what to do. You're like, looks weird. I did some Googling, could be normal. This is definitely new. And then you like see first it's like a couple of endpoints, and then you see more, and then you're like trying to determine, is a piece of software updating and is this behavior totally fine? And this is more of my experience with the EDR tool, DataSim. So like with BLUMIRA specifically, with that same situation, what we try to do is, even if you get a finding and you read the title and you're like, I don't know, I'm not sure if this is bad or if it's normal. We have that workflow to get you in the right direction, to make some suggestions like, okay, here, this is where we're at. Let's evaluate this step by step here. And it depends on the kind of detection. Some detections will even give you suggestions on where to specifically look, or they'll tell you, you know, look at the review recent traffic from the affected endpoints, determine such and such. And then you'll have, you know, 2 to 3 options, you know, no, this was normal behavior, or yes, this was confirmed as suspicious activity, or sometimes we even have like, no, I don't want to, no, I didn't look into those logs, but I'd like to continue through the steps, essentially, kind of thing. So the idea there is that you get a finding and you start taking action on it, and you reduce that time that you spend in a uncertain kind of state of non-action. Because the longer you wait at evaluating whether or not you need to take, you know, potentially like a critical server down, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be the guy that disrupts the business or causes the business to lose money. The worst case scenario being that you make the call, yes, this is an incident, you take it down, and another coworker might identify, oh, that's actually just this antivirus has this new feature and it set this off, it set Defender off. And that could be a very unfavorable outcome. But a more unfavorable outcome, I think, is to get an alert, know that it's bad, see that it's affecting a critical server, and then choose not to take action because you don't have the steps already in place. And so while we might be able to help you determine whether or not or help you guide you with the workflow to help you determine whether or not you believe the finding is something you need to take action to. After that, you need that instant response plan in place so that you, your coworker, your boss, the C-level, the people below you, everyone knows the plan. And so when there is a change that is disruptive, where everyone's working together and in sync and they know exactly who did what and why, and the next steps that are needed to recover. So, and that gets into a whole thing. Now you go into does it DLP, go into backups. That's a whole other thing. But you don't have those discussions unless you talk about, hey, what's our fire plan here? Shout out to Catherine Ullman, investigator chick, her BDS podcast. She had a really good podcast about where she made a simile between how fire drill or working on a volunteer firefighter as a volunteer firefighter kind of equates to instant response. So I really like that. If you're looking to beef up your IR program and you don't know where to start, that's a good place. And then I'd recommend that you stop by NIST and see what the most you can do, and then maybe scale down.
Right.
Very cool. Yeah.
Amanda, what do you think? Sorry, I know that was a lot of the words I just threw out there.
No, I agree. No, yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, we try and put my BLUMIRA hat back on. So Brian, the other guy in our IDE team, has he calls them fractals, which is if you were to see it in decision tree layout, you would go crazy. Yeah. Okay. It is sometimes up to probably what do you think, 20 layers?
I can't even, it's like falling down a hole. It feels like it. Your eyeballs struggle to read.
Yeah. They're for very specific attacks too. So,
yeah, usually stuff where we're
this is bad.
This is bad. Right. Yeah, if you find that a workflow is quite long, it might be a sign that
you should go through it.
Yeah. If it's evident that we've put a lot of information available, it's because you need to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So people who are, customers of yours, you work very intimately with the incident response process, obviously, because you might be the people minus Krebs or the other Krebs, not Chris Krebs, that you might be the one reaching out and saying, hey, we've noticed some weird stuff, maybe you should roll IR on this. So that makes sense.
And we work with actual IR firms to hand that off to.
That's not where the sim is there for you, so when you need to initiate IR procedures. Ideally, in a perfect world, sometimes you catch the event and you don't make it in time and you're ransomwared. But ideally, you catch it, you contain it, and you minimize damage, just like a fire. You see smoke, maybe the fire alarm goes off first, whatever. You get to it, you put the fire out, and then you see what's damaged, if hopefully the house isn't burnt down.
Makes sense. Yeah. Assess the damage and move along. So that makes sense. So, okay. So watch this. So you've done your incident response, you're assessing the damage, you're doing your lessons learned, and you find out, maybe we need to implement some controls around authentication. And, we've been using passwords, 8 characters upper, lower number special for years. And there's this newfangled thing called, MFA or 2FA or, whatever. Maybe we need to implement that. So are you seeing a lot of organizations that don't have MFA or should be implementing that?
Yeah. You couldn't have done a better segue, because that's exactly what happens. I swear. I've seen it in Reddit. I've seen it in real life.
Well, the last few people, customers that we've had, have issues.
Yeah.
To put it nicely, definitely may have had 2-factor or multi-factor auth, but not on CEO or CFO or board member, because they don't want it. And then
ideally the people who most need it don't want it, or don't feel like I'm just the CEO of a company. Why would they want to hack me? That makes sense.
It's a tough topic. It's a really tough topic because I think for one reason, everyone's got an opinion.
Yes.
So it makes it harder. Not even people in InfoSec. I can't even, if I bring up the words multi-factor authentication in a conversation with my relatives, there's not a faster way to end a conversation. It really is not. So with Thanksgiving coming up, by the way, feel free to use that, breaking down security family.
There you go. There you go.
But
you want to get out of that awkward political conversation, just start bringing up multi-factor auth.
Just start, that's a great idea. Anyway, what you could also segue into, and this is what they really don't want to hear, is that SMS-based multi-factor authentication is insecure. I actually stopped talking about that to my relatives because it sends a mixed message. Because what I say is, hey, make sure you're using safe MFA kind of thing,
Right.
What they hear is that MFA isn't safe. And so why should I even use it?
Right. Yeah. And, we talked before Ms. Berlin actually got on, we were talking about the SMS stuff. And I was telling the story, my mother, who is not technical, has never been technical, doesn't work in a technical, area. She has 5 websites she goes to. And one of them is, where she buys things, either Walmart or Amazon or whatever. She has 2 passwords. So, the need for things like password lockers and stuff just does not make a lot of sense. And she doesn't, use a computer at work because of where she works has really restrictive, policies about, being in retail and whatever. So she writes her passwords down and she has them in a notebook. It doesn't actually say password book or whatever like that, but she writes them down and they're nice and complicated and 12 to 15 characters, and I remind her to change them every 6 months or year or whatever, just to stay ahead of that and not to add a 1, if you will, and not to use things like our kids' names or dogs or birth dates or whatever. But yeah, I mean, LastPass or 1Password is overkill for her. And same thing for my mother-in-law. She has, 3 websites she goes to, and, one of them being Facebook, and, writing down the passwords, does not store them online, does not make sure that she has yet another password for her locker that is insecure. And, in a lot of cases, SMS, even though NIST has deprecated SMS 2-factor, there are a lot of places that still use SMS 2-factor, like PayPal and GitHub and, other things like this. And they give you that option. My bank, the largest credit union in the world, Navy Federal, still uses SMS 2-factor. And they do have mobile verification, which is another, second factor, kind of push thing. But yeah, I mean, there are still places where SMS is the only option that you have. And it's difficult to get people to adopt having, I got to log in, I got to use an app. And then there's the argument of, well, if you're logging in on your phone that uses 2-factor to a website, is there a second factor there, because your phone is also the 2FA bit. So, and to be fair, for a lot of our threat models, if nation states are, actively attacking you, if you're the CEO of a company and you worry about nation states potentially lifting your emails, then yeah, maybe SMS 2FA is not good because of things like, SIM swapping or, cloning phones or something like that. But, for the person that I just see walking their dog down my street, they probably, SMS would work for them in some cases, depending on who they are. I don't know who that person is, but and then there's other options. You don't even need to use MFA or SMS. You could use like an Octopush or, there's hardware tokens, especially. So you have BLUMIRA Helps here. How does BLUMIRA help with things like, MFA or, how does that work for y'all?
Yeah, really briefly before we move on to how awesome BLUMIRA is, I do want to make a distinction between how we use MFA in our personal and private lives and how we choose to use it in an enterprise or even like an organization. I think at an organization level, especially, I think you need, like, again, threat modeling, assess the impact to access to areas with confidential information or private information, yada, yada. And you need to determine, like, make sure that you're using the most secure ways of access there. So critical applications. Yeah. Sorry. I'd love to drive this point home because this is talked about all the time. And I feel like everyone's opinions kind of get fused in kind of interesting ways. Love the idea of writing down passwords. I'm going to, for grandma and stuff like that, or even for your mom, cousin, what have you, until I hear stories about people breaking into homes and stealing password notebooks, making off with like people's retirement savings and stuff like that. I'm cool with that. BLUMIRA, we understand that MFA is important. And so, one of the approaches we take is like, we know it's important, so we enforce it, at least set up at our level for our application. And so when you use BLUMIRA, you need to use MFA to log in. It's just something that is a part of the process when you sign up and start using our product. It's just
you don't have an option to not do it.
Yeah, we enforce it.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And we also have some MFA related detections were available. So like, for instance, we do have a detection that's AWS related. I believe if a root account doesn't have MFA, and then we also have
like attempted sign-ins, something that has multi-factor, that kind of stuff. Or if it's a successful single factor authentication.
Okay.
Where it shouldn't be.
And the Duo ones are a little more specific, I think, too. We have a few more Duo ones too, because that's what Duo does.
Yeah.
Right.
Okta. I forgot about Okta. Yeah.
How do you ingest logs from an Okta or a Duo if the company that you're working with doesn't necessarily have access to those logs in the first place? Is there a way to do that? Maybe I'm ignorant, and can you pull the Duo and Okta logs that way?
Yeah, and I think you should not pay for, well, this is my opinion, but when I'm spending my money on a software product, I expect some logs.
Right.
And if I don't have them, how can I trust? It's just like, how can I monitor that product? How do I know when it's running? How do I know that it's working? How do I investigate anything? I need the logs. So, and something as important as access, you need logs on that. You need to audit that. In some cases, you need to audit it because you're required to, for compliance reasons or for contractual reasons with your clients or government requirements, depend all sorts of requirements. Yeah.
So I'm sure Duo and Okta have that mechanism in place to be able to do so. I mean, they wouldn't be as successful as they were if they didn't have those. So
they're pretty popular.
Yeah, you'd think there's some really popular companies that are terrible at logging. I've wanted to do like an anonymous, not related to BLUMIRA name and shame of terrible logging companies.
Well, now everyone's gonna know who made it.
I mean, I guess.
You can't put on your V for Vendetta mask and then put out a blog post. Yeah.
Well, we did like a Reddit AMA a while ago. Me and a handful of other people at BLUMIRA did a Reddit AMA.
It was good. If you have time to read through it, I'd recommend it. Even if you're like, I'm new in security and just curious about what is security, good thread. Yeah.
So I think I was on our NetSec, right? I think
Probably.
I think it was NetSec.
I don't know. I'll go look.
Yeah, we could probably put that in the show notes too.
You can find it.
We should.
Yeah, but gosh, what was I talking about?
Sorry.
Octalogs and stuff.
Octalogs, spurn book, shame them.
Right, yeah.
Anonymously, semi-anonymously.
I had kind of accidentally called out somebody that was really crappy at something, like a vendor.
Oh yeah.
And I wasn't even thinking. I was just like, I'm on Reddit. I'm going to give my opinion because I'm on Reddit. And then the guy contacted by marketing. They're like, we edited your reply a little bit if you want to check it out, because you can't just we have a partnership with them. I'm like, crap.
Can't be kept in call out. Yeah.
Right.
It's hard to remember when to be a person.
Right.
Yeah. Or when not to be a person.
When not to be a person.
Cool. All right. So I think that was it. That was all of our discussion today. I do appreciate your time, Emily. Ms. Berlin, Emily's going to be working with you very soon, but y'all are definitely hiring people. I'm assuming they're going to backfill Emily's position, or need, at least 2 people to backfill Emily's position, because she sounds awesome.
Yep.
They need 2 people to replace Emily over there on the
big shoes
the
to
SOC.
fill.
That's right. What's the culture of BLUMIRA like for you, Emily? How long have you been at BLUMIRA, and what's the culture like for you?
Oh, I've been here now almost 9 months.
Okay.
And the culture is great. The culture's great. The teams are close knit. It's hard because
hold on, let me kick Miss Berlin off, and then you can really tell us what's up.
Get her out of here, and then I'll tell it. Give you the real
she got kicked accidentally.
No, it's fantastic. It's hard. I always tread carefully, because whenever you hear it's good, it's perfect, it's great, it's 100%, you're always like, is it really though?
Right.
But I like it. Sometimes it's like, we're too friendly.
Right.
It's like because this is my coworkers, but they're also and I know it's so cheesy, sometimes it just feels like these are my friends over here. And some mornings, I'm in a lot of Discords, I'm in a lot of Slacks, and I gotta tell you, some mornings the first Slack I'm in is on my work Slack. So if that tells you anything, I really, long story, I really enjoy working here. And I think one of the BLUMIRA differentiators in terms of work culture is that I see a real emphasis on what you as an individual bring to the team, and then they try to exploit your already existing interests and put you in the right spot, so that you can not only so that you can grow, but so that you can help the product grow. I think that I'm sure you've heard it before, but I think that it's really important to pay attention to the people who's in the seat of the role, making sure that they're engaged and that they, that they're being playing a part of a team. Because everyone's job's easier when everybody is moving and doing the things that they are most comfortable doing. So yeah, I really like that. And it's really nice to see people just shine at what they do. So yeah, it's really nice. I really like this place. I also like the fact that we have a strong emphasis on learning. I appreciate that they're, my bosses have always been very, very open about talking with me about getting certifications or getting me the time off I need to go to a security conference. And I found that if there is a security conference, there's at least one of us going.
Or speaking at it.
Or speaking at it, yeah.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Miss Berlin.
Yeah, my goodness. So Amanda's all over the map there, going to security conferences. So, but this is just a nice team, and it's just if you if you're in the right spot and you're thinking about making a switch to somewhere and you love logs, give us a look, do an interview, see if we're a good fit for you. Cause this is a good team. Yeah.
I'm imagining a lumberjack in my head when you said if you love logs. I was like, no, okay, it's not that. Not
you love logs.
Dad joke. Sorry.
If you thought of a lumberjack when I said you love logs, this might not be the job for you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I told you about the next tattoo I'm getting, right?
No.
Live, laugh, log.
Oh.
Wow.
I hope there's a picture of the angry beavers on each side.
Oh, I
love the angry beavers. They're
fighting.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'm just gonna get that in script.
Maybe
there you go.
One in red and one in blue or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. Very cool. Yeah. Emily, how would if people wanted to talk to you more about logs or logging or lumberjacks and beavers and stuff, know, and BLUMIRA, how would they find you online?
Find me on Twitter. My name is Malware Emily. Shout out to Malware Jake. I'm so sorry.
Whatever.
After I made my handle, I was like,
you're gonna be more popular. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I don't know about that, but if you like malware analysis and reverse engineering, give me a follow. If you like detections and signatures, give me a follow. I am a retweeter. I'm not really a content creator, but every now and then I just draft the tweet. I don't send it, but I've been thinking about sending those tweets out there. So we'll see.
Okay. Very cool. All
right. I have a website too, malwareemily.com.
Malwareemily.com.
Yeah. And that's just the one E shared between Malware and Emily.
Okay. That's why.
So you should get redirected. Twitter, yeah. You should get redirected either way. It might be easier to go to malwareemily.com and then. But it depends how comfortable you feel typing malware into your domain. Farther. Yeah.
I already follow you. Sweet. I already follow you. That's awesome. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I was like, I should go follow her. And I'm like, oh, no, I already do. Okay, cool.
I have been retweeting before stories have been hitting a bleeping computer. So I got that going. Yeah. Nice. There you go. Cool. I'm on the bleeding edge.
Okay.
Twitter.
And yep. And really and of course there's BLUMIRA Sec, so BLUMIRASEC on Twitter. That's the official Twitter for the company. And Miss Berlin, of course, your Twitter is
InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR, and I also still have control over the BLUMIRA Twitter account. Surprisingly,
oh no!
Even though we have our entire own marketing team, but for some reason they still let me have access to it.
You have more reach. So yeah.
They like to live dangerously,
I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Okay. So yeah, if you're listening and you like this content and more, there's 350 hours of podcasts. So you can go check it out at breakingsecurity.com. Hit us up on Twitter at BreakSec. And you can actually follow me at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. And Mr. Betcher, he's missing but not forgotten. Betcher Pwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. So you can go check that out. Thank you again, Emily, for all your time, and thank you, Miss Berlin, for making all this possible. And we'll hope everyone has a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.